Willie and I for this live Supergirl discussion, talking about season 1 of Supergirl. All right, let's jump right into it. Don, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Don Willi, and obviously I do videos here on YouTube. Thank you to Josh for having me on this discussion. I haven't actually reviewed any of the episodes, but I have been keeping up. And, you know, when Josh said that he wanted to talk about this, I was like, you know what? I am definitely on board. So thank you again for having me.
All right, let's jump right into it. Season 1 Supergirl just ended in a great finale, in my opinion. What were your thoughts on the season as a whole?
The season for me was kind of a mixed bag, I must admit. The first, few episodes, they kind of went with the old trope of, like, villain of the week. And some of them were from the comic books. I believe all of them were from the comic books, but they were a lot more minor villains. So for some, I actually had to go and look up and, to see who they were. And, towards the latter half of the season, it really started to pick up as they, excuse me, as they progressed into making it more about like an overarching theme for the season, as opposed to being, a bunch of one-off stories. So yeah, it wasn't the greatest season of television, like not, on the level of something like a Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad, but it definitely did not reach down to the depths of like something like Arrow season 3. So yeah, like I don't have many issues with the series, but I will admit the issues that I did have with it are a little glaring for me. But we'll get into that later.
Do you have any specific things you can think of that stood out as especially high quality, or things you really, really liked? Like what girl to even want to join this discussion?
Okay, well, obviously I happen to be, comic book fan. And when I first heard about the show, the one thing I was thinking is, okay, it's the same company that did not Man of Steel, but Smallville. So I'm like, all right, well, let's see how they're able to use the technology as far as visual effects are concerned, and whether or not it would hold up to some of the more modern stuff. And I think they did great with the visual effects. They did an excellent job with the visual effects. I like the costuming, because it could have come off as cheesy, which had this been maybe 10 years ago, they probably would not have used same kind of fabrics. And just the fact that, we've moved away from the spandex era, and they're using a lot more textured fabrics, definitely helps out the look. So this way, it gives it a higher quality look to it than, somebody doing some kind of cheap cosplay. Because let's be honest, sometimes they do that in TV shows and movies, and you're like, who the hell did you hire as a costume designer? But no, I think they did great with that. Martian Manhunter looked great. The flying, not the X-ray eyes, but the heat vision.
Even though, I love the heat vision effect. That was awesome.
Even though the heat vision for some reason is blue instead of red, like, you know what? It's okay. Well, I will overlook the blue instead of red heat vision.
Not that it's white blue instead of red. I just took it as especially hot.
I mean, possibly, you know what? Maybe it's because it's so many years of me, and I'm used to seeing it as red. It just came off as not jarring, but it was just it was something I had to get used to. Um, but yeah, like I think the visual effects are probably the biggest highlight of the show, and just the overall look. You know, some of the things in a vacuum, unfortunately, like when we got the red tornado, like seeing still pictures of the red tornado didn't do it justice to how it actually moved on screen. Uh, because yeah, I remember there were a lot of jokes about the red tornado's look. Uh, just seeing the stills, but actually with the movement on screen, it was like, oh, you know what, this works. So yeah,
And
what were your highlights?
I agree totally, especially with the red tornado. When you looked at the stills, it looked really bad, and then in the episode, it looked pretty good, way better than I anticipated anyway. And the strengths, definitely the effects, kind of like what you said. I think it took a little while for the narrative to really get going, but I think once it did, the narrative was on point for most of the season. Once they had Nan and Afra and the main villains, once they kind of decided what the real story was going to be, I think it really took off.
Yeah,
If,
yeah.
if I was going to harp on anything, it's, in fact, I will go ahead and read it. A Big ZZ has a comment. Can you guys please explain to me why the hell Superman is in the Supergirl TV show, but why we never actually see him? I think they teased Superman way too much. I think if they were, or just get him, pulling Kara out of the pod at the beginning, and then basically never really show him again. If she's going to text him, fine. But I think they had him show up, but not really show up. I think they went to that well too many times.
Yeah, I will agree. And one of the kind of glaring things from the last episode was the end where she's texting back and forth with him. It's like as soon as she sends, as soon as she press send, like less than like a second later, there's already a reply. I'm like, okay, I understand they're super beings, they can type super fast, but we know how cell phone networks work. So I'm like, I doubt you would get the reply through that quickly. But yeah, like personally, I probably would have preferred it if they're either they only talked about how he dropped her off with the Danvers, or if they just didn't have Superman on that particular Earth. Because
Have it be like a different part of the multiverse where he hasn't gotten there.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would have went with
that brings up who was in the pod then at the end of the finale.
Which, yeah, I can't like that was one thing for me that was like I don't like when TV shows do that, honestly. Like it's not just about Supergirl. I don't like when any TV show does that because for one, it seems a little contrived. Like, oh, please. It sounds like you're almost begging people to come back to a certain extent. And I don't know if Supergirl has been officially renewed for a second season yet. So
it hasn't actually, not yet.
Yeah, so I mean, like, that's the thing. I'm like, I personally, if I were producing a TV show, I would never actually do that because if you don't come back for a second or third or whatever season, then you've left this massive cliffhanger that is almost kind of like a black eye on the show to a certain extent because now you've left this hanging thread and people will not get any resolution to it because let's be honest, even if they made like a comic book follow up, let's say for whatever reason they decide, okay, we're not bringing back Supergirl, and we're just gonna tell a story in a comic book. You'd have to really be a fan, A, to know that comic book exists, and then B, to actually go out and buy it because it's like, oh, I really need to see who was in that pod. So
Mhm.
that is one of the things that to me, like again, I just don't like when TV shows do that. Period.
Especially when it's a TV show that's kind of not necessarily on the brink, but something that's not absolutely guaranteed. If you're going to do a cliffhanger and you're not absolutely guaranteed to have another season, I think that's a giant mistake. And it's not an intentional middle finger to the viewers, but it's kind of hard not to take it that way sometimes.
I mean, well, I don't take it as a middle finger to the viewers. Again, to me, it sounds more like they're begging to a certain extent. I'm like, I don't need you to beg. If you make a good show, you don't have to beg me to watch. You know, but other than that, I really didn't have a problem with the season finale. You know, look, I understand that to a certain extent, this show is not really aimed at my demographic. So they're like, I can't really love it because it's not for me, but I do like the fact that it isn't so far out of my field of I'm not field of view, but out of my range that that I absolutely like. I'm just not gonna watch this show. You know, look, I still like it a lot better than Gotham because Gotham, oh god, that one right there. How it survived so long. Oh man, I'm still trying to figure that out.
Okay, we've got a few more comments that we'll read here in the chat. Aubrey James says, I hate James and Kara. I ship Win and Kara. I hate James and Kara too, but I don't really ship Win and Kara. I think Kara would be better served with another character, maybe another powered character, because things might tear off.
Well, listen, I'll be honest with you. That was one of the things that I was not happy with, even in the casting. Period. Point blank. I'm like, first off, look, for anyone out there who's watching this later on, yeah, you can see that I'm obviously a black guy. I am not for the whole thing of just turn a character who was one race into another or one gender into another just because. I have no problem with Jimmy or James Olsen being a white guy. That being said, the one thing that I hated even more than the fact that they changed, Jimmy Olsen's race was the fact that they changed Jimmy Olsen's entire character. Like, Jimmy Olsen is not supposed to be cold. Jimmy
Exactly,
Olsen,
yes.
Jimmy Olsen is a nerd. Win is the real Jimmy Olsen. So if you like, personally, I would have liked it a lot better if the guy who's playing James Olsen was Win, and the guy who's playing Win was Jimmy Olsen, and also give them, the opposite characteristics. Because again, like they basically made the real Jimmy Olsen and gave him a totally different name. And I
Yeah.
was just kind of like, I was looking at him like, why did you do this? Like, I do not understand that. So
That is my only problem with the casting of James Olsen as well. Is he was way too cool. He's tall, he's jacked up, he's good looking, he's suave as hell. I mean, he landed Lucy Lane, for crying out loud.
there you go.
Lands Lucy Lane. In a million years does that ever happen? So that's the only problem I have with the casting there. All right, Big ZZ in the chat says, honestly, I need you guys' opinion. Do you think the Supergirl TV show is worthy to make it into the DCU? If so, why? How would they merge the two universes? Okay, that's tough.
I mean, well, listen, I think they've already kind of DC has already kind of went the opposite route of Marvel, right? Marvel, everyone is in the same sandbox, so Agents of Shield, Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Luke Cage, all of that stuff is going to be existing in the same world. It's just that, you know what, they just don't cross paths because they just have a whole bunch of different things to do. DC, on the other hand, has basically explicitly stated, with the exception of Flash, Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow, anything and I guess Constantine for the times that he showed up on Arrow, everything else is pretty much multiverse. So Supergirl's universe is her universe. Flash, Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow is their universe, and then the movie things are their own universe. So that's how you can kind of, I guess, look past that whole thing. And hey, you know what? I have no problem with it. But you know what's the funny thing? So last night's episode of Flash was supposed to be the tie-in for when he went to Supergirl.
Yeah.
But they didn't.
And they didn't even mention it.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
all they said was, "How long was I gone?" And I'm like, "Come on, dude. At least pull Cisco aside and be like, guess who I just met."
And
that's all you got to do. That's literally all you got to do, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, and like the only reason why I know about that is because I watched Emergency Awesome's video, and he brought it up. Because I saw Flash go through the portal and then come back, and I'm sitting up there like, what was that? And how did no one notice that he disappeared for any amount of time? You figured Cisco and Caitlin would have said something. But anyway, back to Supergirl. So let's get back to more love, because unfortunately I know I'm probably sounding like the negative guy in this whole discussion right now. So I will say that I did like Maxwell Lord. I thought he was a good anti-hero, because I won't say that he was necessarily a villain. The Danvers family, look, I wasn't on board with them at first because I thought they were changing a little too much from the comic books. But once you start to get to know the whole family dynamic, especially with the sister, I like the sister a lot. And I think that was awesome. Callista Flockhart as her boss, Cat Grant. I think that worked very well. And speaking of cats,
she's over here meowing and begging to be let up, so I had to get her.
Cat Grant, I think, worked well. I mean, like, as far as the actual characters themselves, I think that they did a very good job with most of the casting. So, like I said, the only problem I have is with James Olsen, and their whole, like, he's just a totally, like, he's not Jimmy Olsen in any shape, form, or fashion. So, yeah, that was, but what are some more things that you liked about it?
I liked, even though I didn't particularly care for the casting of Jimmy Olsen, Jimmy, Wynn, and Kara. I think their on-screen chemistry and that trio of friends worked remarkably well on screen, and I liked the chemistry between Kat and Kara as well. Like you said, Callista Flockhart did a great job as Kat. And in the writing room, they did a great job of writing her, because in every single episode, she gives fantastic advice to Kara. She gives great great one-liners, and so they wrote that character really, really well. You can tell that it seemed. Excuse me, I'm having trouble talking because of the cat here. This cat right here. It seems like Callista Flockhart had a lot of input into the character as well, because it just seemed very natural for her. in that role.
Yeah, this was not Ally McBeal at
Right.
all. But I mean, I love the character, and it's funny because, like, all right, so finally at the end of season one, finally, it's not Kira anymore, it's Kara.
Yeah, she called her by her name. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was funny though because when they had that episode with her son was like, yeah, so what is it? So I mean, I guess maybe they got enough emails about it, like, oh, because some people have trouble pronouncing certain things, period, point blank, right? So it was one of those things where probably people were like, okay, is she pronouncing it like that on purpose, or is it that that's just like one of the words that she just can't pronounce correctly? So I think they addressed that in the episode, kind of as a wink to the fans. And yeah, listen, I'll buy it that she kind of did that on purpose just to see if it would drive her crazy,
Mhm.
and if it would possibly break her at all. Um, yeah, so I think personally, I think that character, Cat Grant, is probably the heart and soul of Supergirl.
Oh, for sure. Of the show and of the character. I think without Kat there as a role model and a mentor, Supergirl probably doesn't win the day. She doesn't save the planet at the end.
Yeah,
So, and then of course the character, playing that role for the viewers, the things, because sometimes, you're watching TV and you just want to yell at the screen. Kat kind of played that role, which I thought was really neat.
yeah, she definitely did. So I'm glad that they actually have that character on this particular show.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so we talked about it for a second, but I don't think we actually decided who do we think is in the pod at the from the end of the finale. My
Uh,
vote would be for some version of Superboy or something.
I mean, I don't know that they're gonna do a Superboy per se, only because they went out of their way to introduce Clark, even though they're not gonna have him like fully appear. That's what it looks like. They're not gonna actually have him appear for real. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're gonna, make up some kind of Kryptonian because I'm pretty sure that her aunt was made up for the TV show. And oh, funny tidbit. So before they knew that they were going to get extended episodes for the season, the original finale was supposed to be the one where her aunt dies.
Oh,
That was supposed to be the original finale, and that's why there was like a 3 week break in between episodes because they they just didn't know
mhm.
whether or not they were going to. And and they still didn't get to 23 episodes. They only got to 20. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm still, I'm wondering whether they're gonna bring the show back or not. I would love to see a season two, but I will admit there are some things that do bother me about the show that to me are very glaring beyond James Olsen.
Do you want to name one or two,
Okay. All
or
right.
there? Or,
All right. Yeah. I mean, listen. I hate to be the Debbie Downer, the guy who looks like he's hating on the show. But okay, look. I remember when they announced they that they were doing the show, and again, I've already admitted that this is not targeted at my demographic, right? But the one thing that I'm starting to really, really hate in in certain sections of pop culture right now is that every guy on TV is either an idiot, he's thirsty, howling after women, or he's just the most chauvinistic jerk off of all time. And for the first like 7 episodes, that was every guy in Supergirl was some version of that, with the exception of James. James was like the one guy who wasn't always trying to downplay Supergirl. Every other guy was either damn near panting, tongue wagging at her all day long, or they were too stupid to figure out anything on their own, or they were the guy who was telling her, "Oh, you can't possibly do that because you're a girl." And I'm just like, okay, where are you finding these men in real life? I would like to know, because I want to sit them down and have a long talk with them and just like, look, no, please snap out of it. Like, because it kind of, it really kind of got my goat seeing that stuff through the first, third of the season. But, once that stopped happening, I was like, okay, finally, I feel like I can breathe now.
I think I didn't really catch on to that. I did get a little bit of sick of Wynn pining after Kara for so long. I really wish they had resolved that a little bit faster. But as far as men being downplayed or downgraded or disrespected at all, I really didn't get that vibe.
Not necessarily disrespected, but it just kind of seemed like they had 3 basic stereotypes for most of the guys, and the stereotypes were all negative, except for James. For like the first 7,
James Holston.
Yeah, for the first 7 episodes, right? And then it was like, all right, after that, it got a little bit more even, and it wasn't all about, okay, any man that she faces against is gonna be like, there's no way you can beat me because you're not Superman, you're Supergirl, and and all that other kind of stuff. Because remember, the first interaction with Martian Manhunter, when we didn't know he was Martian Manhunter, he's basically like, oh, really? So you brought her along? What is she gonna do? She's just a girl, and like there were like, if you get the chance, go back and watch some of the earlier episodes throughout the season. You'll see what I'm talking about. Like, I picked up on that immediately, and the only reason why I picked up on that immediately is because I remembered what they talked about in the announcements for like how they were kind of going to frame the show.
I'll go back and watch them. I just don't remember noticing it at all when we were watching. What else? What else do you got? Any parting shots before we wrap up the video?
Yeah, the name of the city. Oh God,
National City.
I mean, with all of the the fictional cities that exist in the DC universe, I understand you don't want to set it in Metropolis because you can't set it in Metropolis and then every other sentence when something happens that's bad is like, oh, can we get Superman on this? Superman lives in Metropolis and then Superman is never anywhere around. So I get that part. But oh my God, National City, really? National City. Like,
I don't know enough about the setting of the DC universe. Is there a national city in the DC universe?
No, absolutely
There's not. So that's new for the show.
That is 100% a show creation, because trust me, I looked that up because I'm like, all right, I get DC. DC is not like Marvel in that regard. Marvel, the characters exist in our regular world, and with the exception of the fact that they may change an address for where the people live, no, like, Spider-Man is from Queens, New York. The Fantastic Four live on Park Avenue. Tony Stark lives in Malibu, California. There's not these, created cities that don't actually exist. But DC has tons of fictional cities that you could have picked from to use in the show. So why they decided, oh yeah, National City? I'm like, oh god. Oh, to me, that might actually be worse than when they decided that Oliver Queen doesn't live in Star City like he does in the comic books, but Starling City. And I guess after the backlash was like, no, just call it Star City. And then they decided, okay, yeah, we're gonna call it Star City. We're gonna pretend like Starling didn't exist, and we're gonna pretend like he was always Green Arrow and not just the Arrow. So yeah, I don't know who decided. Yes, let's go with the most utterly ridiculous name possible for a fictional city. But oh, good lord! Every time I hear that, it makes me want to it makes me throw up on my mouth just a little bit.
So overall, if you had to give season 1 a grade, what would you give it?
You know what? Overall, I'll give it a solid 7. Overall,
7 out of 10.
Again,
So a C.
Yeah, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I mean, look, you know what? There are some improvements that could be made about the story. And I think they went a long way to make improvements throughout the season because, sometimes first seasons get a little clunky. But again, they could have done a lot worse. They could have done a lot worse. And I like the fact that they actually did show progression and growth throughout the season. If they could just change the name to National City, oh god! I mean that I would probably give it 2 more points just if they went back and
Wow.
and changed the name.
It affected you that much.
Oh yeah, I know it's petty. It's very petty. It's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers right now. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I was just like, all right, come on, man. Like, how do you guys write this on paper and then read it back and think, yeah, you know what? I'll do that. Yes, yes, that right there. We'll do that. So
I think if I was going to score it, I'd probably score it a high B, 8.8 out of 10. Yeah, I'm going to round, not even 8.5, but 8.8 out of 10. From the season 1 trailer, that big long 3-minute trailer, I was super hyped for it, and it started off a little. There was some growing pains in the first few episodes, but once they got through those, I had a great time watching it. I mean, it was a super fun show. I don't think there was a single episode where I just wanted to sit, look at the television, and have fun, and it delivered on that.
yeah, look, here's the thing. I was satisfied with all episodes. I wasn't necessarily blown away by anything though. Like I'm hoping season 2 blows me away, but I was definitely satisfied with what I saw, and that's why I gave it a 7 out of 10 as opposed to a higher grade.
All right, that's fair enough. I think season 2, if they do get picked up, I think it'll be, and 1 was really, really good. Just from some articles that I've read, the writers, the creator, the showrunner, they've already got a plan for season 2. And what I've read about it, it sounds like they really got their heads on straight. And Supergirl's going to come into season 2 more seasoned, more confident, and I'm jazzed for it, man. I really hope it gets picked up.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. So I hope they do get picked up. And again, like I said, I think that they did show a lot of growth from the first episode to the last. So, I mean, again, I remember, as I've stated before, I'm not the demographic that they're going after. So I'm
I think it's fair to say that I'm not either. I mean, I'm 38-year-old dude. I am so far out of their target demo, it's ridiculous.
38? Seriously? Dude, I thought you were in your 20s, man.
No, man.
Okay, well, hey, you know what? You're great for your age, bro.
But yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm not their target demo, but I still got a lot of enjoyment out of it.
I mean, hey, and that is what you want when you watch a TV show, to enjoy.
Exactly. Words before we stop the broadcast?
No, you know, listen, I would just like to thank you again for having me on. It is always great to do these talks, and this actually went a little longer than we initially planned, but, you know, things never go
Yeah.
yeah, so, yeah, man.
Two dudes BSing about a TV show, it's going to go long.
Yeah, but no, thank you again for having me. Thank you to everyone who is watching now and will watch later on. And you know, if you feel the urge, make sure to check out my channel. You know, I plan on doing some. You know, maybe I will do a season review of my own for Supergirl. Not exactly sure yet, but if you're into Game of Thrones, you should definitely check out my channel.
Shout yourself out again, because on my end the screen froze for a little bit, and I want to make sure the viewers caught it because I didn't watching it.
Oh wow. Yeah. Well, again, my name is Don Willi, and you can find me here on YouTube. And you know, if you happen to like Game of Thrones, especially, you should check out my channel. I got a lot of great theories and also character profiles and reviews, etc., etc. And I might actually do a review for season 1 of Supergirl. If you happen to like Better Call Saul, I'm putting up a review for that either tonight or tomorrow. And also, you know, Fear the Walking Dead, I also do reviews for that as well. So check me out. And thank you again to Josh for having me. You know, sorry that Anna couldn't be here, but next time.
Anna's here in spirit and on the couch right over here. She's feeling a lot better, so hopefully she'll be up for doing our reviews here at the end of the week. We have Orphan Black, which is going live on Friday night, and Winona Earp, which is going live on Friday night. So hopefully she's back for that. Thank you so much. Super fun discussion about Supergirl. See what I did there? All right. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And for everybody who's not watching this live, be sure to drop a like on this video, comment down below. And thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.